We have to start with the Bears, a team that have not been able to win in over a month, facing the Lions, a team that all they can do is win this season. First game of Thanksgiving, which I got to say has been a factor as the Lions have struggled mightily on Thanksgiving. I mean, just historically, as a
Yeah.
franchise, they've been a struggling franchise, but especially recently, they have not been able to find a way to win, which is what makes me think that this iteration of Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, and Aaron Glenn are going to put on a show and try to absolutely demolish my
Yeah.
Chicago Bears. Maybe Caleb Williams can, will this offense into doing something, but this has all the looks to be an ugly game. Christian, what's your immediate assessment?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing I could bet on is we're going to get out coached. I think we can all agree that the Bears are going to get out coached on Thanksgiving.
Bears get outcoached by a Pop Warner team.
Yeah, we're bad. But honestly, I said this at the beginning of the year. Detroit, I always thought was the third best team in this division. Part of the reason I thought is because the head coach, the difference between Minnesota's coach, Green Bay's coach, and more importantly, I think the secondary for Detroit is very, very exposed. I mean, obviously, we talked about two rookies having to play a lot early on in the season. Terrion Arnold was banged up last week. I didn't realize how important he was to that defense until I saw them play last week. Night and day difference when Terrion Arnold is on the field. So shout out to Terrion Arnold.
Roll Tide for that.
Yeah, for sure. And then Carlton Davis, he's been a very good cornerback this year. He had a knee injury this weekend. And I always said, I personally think we could kill them with our passing offense. And you combine that with the injuries that they're facing in the front seven. I mean, it looks like Anzalone's obviously out with that forearm injury he suffered. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson's out. Derek Barnes is on IR. Marcus Davenport is on IR. So they're banged up. And I had a question about it last week. At what point in time do we have to actually get concerned with the amount of injuries that they're dealing with? Obviously, it's probably not going to make much of a difference versus the poorly coached Chicago Bears team. But I think Caleb can do great things against this team. Unfortunately, their run offense, the Detroit Lions run offense, is probably going to eat us alive.
100%.
So, I mean, Montgomery's facing a knee issue, but Dan Campbell said he's probably good to go. Amon-Ra St. Brown facing some injury, but he's also probably good to go. So I think they're going to run the ball all over us, but I do think we're going to have some success offensively. And I think moving forward, you really got to keep an eye on Detroit. I know everyone's saying they're the favorites to win the NFC. They're the favorites to win the Super Bowl, but these are some serious injuries that they're dealing with, and these guys are really good players. I mean, they mean a lot. Carlton Davis means a lot. A guy like Ennis Rackstraw means a lot. Taylor Decker means a lot. And these guys are getting hurt late in the season. Just keep an eye on them. But, yeah, I do have to say Detroit's going to win. I'll say the Bears cover. Why not? I think it's a 10-point spread. I'll take the Bears to cover.
We'll see. I just got to say, you're 100% right about the Bears getting outcoached in this game. I think the Bears team has, under Thomas Brown, I don't know if it's been Caleb, being able to be invigorated by just not having Shane Waldron. I'm not sure if
he's so bad.
Yeah, if Thomas Brown not necessarily simplifying the offense, but actually directing the offense in a way that it's coherent. And apparently Shane Waldron was just telling Caleb, go out there and read unreadable route trees and just freelance out there and change every play. It just was not going to work out for a rookie quarterback. It makes you seriously question. And a lot of people have talked about promoting Thomas Brown. Okay, and I have a couple main problems with this. One, you need to keep him in the booth. You need to keep him
That's
up
fair.
there in the play calling booth to where he's not going to be. As soon as he's the head coach, he's got to come down to the sideline. We saw Shane Waldron on the sideline when he should have been up in the booth from the beginning, doing what Thomas Brown is doing. The number one priority for this season should be Caleb's development. Nothing else should matter. They're not a playoff team. They're going to be losing games consistently just based on their schedule. So we should be focusing completely on Caleb's development. Whether that's for Eberflus or for another coach, doesn't matter. But it shouldn't be Thomas Brown coming down from where he's at because it's been helpful to Caleb. My only other problem with promoting Thomas Brown after the season is it would be just so Bears to not actually conduct a full coaching search, make the call on a guy like Ben Johnson, make the call on some of these high-profile coaching candidates, or at least have the interview to get some knowledge for your franchise to know what does a great head coach sound like. Give these guys a chance, because the most Bears-like outcome of this process would be them not doing their due diligence on a full coaching search and promoting Thomas Brown because he's just the guy in the room and making him the head coach. He very well could be a great head coach in the NFL, but I need to see them actually make a diligent effort at these other coaches like Ben Johnson, who, and I'll tie this all back together, his run offense is going to absolutely destroy this Bears run defense.
Yeah.
The secondary has been, solid, and albeit they miss Jaquan Brisker for sure in that spot. Jonathan Owens, who should have been playing there from the beginning, has been getting some run, but you've seen Tyreek Stevenson struggle. Terrell Smith has stepped up, but he's a limited player. There are some weak spots in the Bears passing defense. There are weak spots all over this defense at this point, but the run defense is the clear, hole on this team. And they're going to run right through those holes. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery all day on Thursday morning. And I think it's going to be a big win for the Lions, I painfully say. Now, after the Bears fans have had their pedestal here, what does an outsider perspective think about this game like?
What I think you guys cannot be you cannot be disappointed at all with the output on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Caleb Williams is doing everything he can do, and it doesn't pop out, I think, like other teams because of just how poorly they're playing on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, there's so many problems on the defensive line. I think, as you said, Pat, I think they're going to be able to run all over them. It's a 10-point spread. Over/under is set at 48.5. What I like in this is, I like the Lions to cover. I think 2 scores is very well within reach for them to, be able to beat the Bears. But I mean, there are problems in the offensive line, and that's what I will give the Lions credit for is just the continuity on defense to really not be able to lose their punch after Aiden Hutchinson went down for the year. The secondary has been playing very, very well. They're getting pressure on quarterbacks and just not giving up big plays like I think we've seen the Lions do in the past, the pre-Dan Campbell era. Jared Goff has been able to play really well, and the continuity on being able to run the ball between Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't know if there's anything they'll be able to do on the defensive side of the ball that's going to be able to stop them. I don't like the Bears to cover this. But I'll give you credit. I mean, Caleb Williams he's looked the part. So, I mean, everything that has been wrong with the Bears this season is not on the first-round pick, not on the number 1 overall quarterback who got drafted in the NFL. There are problems in the offensive line that you two addressed ad nauseum going into this year, and they've shown. And there's very lack of a run game to talk about. And it puts the pressure on Caleb Williams to be throwing the ball 45 times, throughout the course of a game. It's a lot of pressure on him. 3 touchdowns last game. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the pressure that's going to be coming from Aaron Glenn and this Detroit defense. And then you flip it to the offensive side of the ball. I mean, we've seen Jameson Williams come on. Amon-Ra St. Brown is still there. The one player that we really haven't seen that kind of broke out last year was Sam Laporta, but they've made up for that with just Jahmyr Gibbs becoming a top 5 running back in the NFL right now. I mean, they can give up the points, they'll score them at this point. It's just I think this is you weigh talent against talent, and I think 10 points to Detroit. It seems like a gimme. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there will be a lot of pressure on Caleb going into this game at Detroit, at a galvanized fan base that is expecting a Super Bowl team this year. I think it's just that's a locomotive you're going up against on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Bears cover that 10-point spread, it's going to be because Caleb Williams does something special. I don't think there's any way that the defense doesn't look like it's ready to make plays. Some of these guys are. It's not going to be. Maybe DJ Moore will run a short screen pass and be able to take it to the house, and that'll help Caleb. But other than that, it's been relying on Caleb to make some amazing throws. Here's a
number I'm curious to hear from you guys from. So the Bears team total is at 19.5. Lions are at 29.5. But we look at Bears 19.5. Are there 3 touchdowns to be had this game? You think there are?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he did against a very complex Minnesota defense. I mean, I don't know if we got a perfect game from Caleb, and Caleb was still he played at a very high level. Again, we've talked about the deep ball for a while. If he makes a couple of those deep ball passes, corner of the end zone to Rome, I recall, we haven't even been attempting deep balls with DJ Moore. I feel like that's the next element that at some point Caleb's just going to get, he's just going to let loose. I feel like he's got nothing left to lose, and I think that's the next element of this offense. A team that's down a couple of corners, why not take a couple of shots? I'm sure they're installing it this week, at least a couple of deep shots in this game, and I think we scored, I believe, 28 points against Minnesota. I don't see how Detroit gives us a more difficult time.
What I'm curious to hear from you two is right. I mean, right at halftime, they didn't score any points. Then they had 17 in the fourth quarter. Had you scored anything in that third quarter, you would have won that game.
The field goal.
The Vikings were doing a really solid job of controlling the ball and controlling possession, and just wearing on that Bears defense to where it was relying on Caleb to go crazy in the fourth quarter. And how many of those 17 points were in like a minute and a half after a span of such a short time that it's really hard to garner anything from that other than Caleb is special. That's true. Caleb made special plays, and onside kicks are if
let's
you can
be
get
honest.
them, onside kicks can make points happen fast. But they're
Let's be honest.
We haven't talked since Shane Waldron got fired as offensive coordinator. Yeah. I mean, how do you guys feel? I feel like that looks like a reinvigorated offense that has juice.
And all I wanted to say was, I do think that when you talk about installing deep shots to DJ Moore, getting other guys more involved, the beautiful thing that Thomas Brown is now doing that Shane Waldron failed to do was have an actual direction and a coherent offense where he's making things look similar. He's giving you similar looks, but then different plays off of them. And that's what's going to open up some of these deep shots for DJ Moore. Because when you've seen them look for every way to get the ball to DJ Moore at a short distance, teams are going to key in on that, and it's going to open up things downfield for other guys. They're going to be able to do it with guys like Rome Odunze, who's shown you good run after catch ability as well. there's a lot of potential in this offense, and that's just what makes the Thomas Brown move so frustrating, or the Shane Waldron move from the beginning so frustrated, and not getting a guy like Thomas Brown when you've had him in the building the whole time.
And you never know. It could be a DeAndre Swift revenge game. I mean, that's something you can factor in. That is something you can factor in.
Yeah. And you just got to think about it like we are that Jahmyr Gibbs draft class away. Just think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an optimistic note to end on for Bears fans on that particular game.